So it would appear that the media glazing of Avowed is not going to stop anytime soon. If you're keeping pace with things and you're actually paying attention, you'll see that most players aren't really that interested in the game. People have tried it, people have moved on. Most content creators are either being quiet about the game, especially the ones who were very positive, and the ones who, like myself, said that the game was probably not going to be that great, are taking victory laps because they were right and people were rude to them, and so we're all just having a little bit of fun about this. However, it seems as though the articles coming out regarding Avowed are kind of blind to the reality that the game has presented to us. And it's strange, to say the least. I'm I'm the type of person that doesn't really understand why something like this would occur. But when I really sit down and think about it, it makes sense. If you get paid to advertise for a product, you're going to advertise for that product. You don't really care about the quality of the product itself. You really just care about the fact that it's paying you money, and so you like it. Avowed is an incomplete game. It's an RPG, open world, sure. None of the features that make open world RPGs enjoyable. It has exploration, and that's about it. Apparently, it's related to Pillars of Eternity. I wouldn't know. I'd have to play those games still. I tried initially, but I just didn't vibe with it all that much. But who knows? Maybe I'll give them a try and actually try and finish those games. I've played a lot of CRPGs in my time, and Pillars of Eternity just never really vibed with me. Regardless, Avowed seems to have become kind of a lightning rod for media positivity, kind of like Veilguard was before its launch. Unfortunately, Avowed seems to have not even managed to reach those numbers, even though if you look at just the media articles and not actual evidence, you would likely believe the exact opposite. However, if we look right here, you can see that Avowed has just barely managed to beat its previous record of 17K with 18.6K. And sure, that is a lot of people, right? Unfortunately, Avowed had a rather large budget of 70 to 80 million. That is that is the minimum, right? For 6 years of development. Now, does that necessarily mean that the game is a failure? Of course not. In fact, the fact that it has such a low budget means that it probably is going to be a successful game. Because it doesn't need to, make amazing numbers. However, everything points to the game still haven't managed to crack 1 million sales, which is something that it's going to. I would guess it has to crack at least 2 million in order to be profitable. But it doesn't seem like it's done so, and it doesn't seem like it's going to do so anytime soon. And now, we have this article by PC Gamer talking about how Avowed could have been Obsidian's Redfall, with a Destiny plus Skyrim co-op multiplayer vision scrapped early in a grueling 6-year development. Now, for those of you who don't know about Redfall, I envy you, first of all. But secondly, Redfall was a terrible game. Genuinely, genuinely terrible. It was unfinished, unpolished, it lacked features, the AI for the enemies was terrible, the open world was boring, the NPCs were dull, and the challenge was not present. And I guess that kind of fits. However, Redfall was heralded by media articles such as PC Gamer. I don't know if PC Gamer themselves were super positive about it. I'd have to go check. But others were very positive. They made a lot of raving reviews about Redfall. This game about hunting vampires that really didn't do well at all. In fact, if you go and look up its ratings, about 40% of people liked it. Less, actually. It managed to crack 6,000 players on Steam on launch because there was a lot of hype around it. But other than that, nothing much came out of it. But let's skim through this article and see what exactly they mean when they compare Avowed to Redfall and why it seems as though they are painting Redfall in a positive light, even though it was a terrible game. In a recent interview with Bloomberg, Avowed director Kerry Patel shed some more light on what seems to have been a challenging development cycle for the venerable RPG studio. Not only was Avowed initially supposed to be a seamless open world, it was going to have co-op or even live service multiplayer component, and had to be rebooted after 2 years of pre-production. The end result is pretty fantastic though, and DLCs or even a full sequel already seem to be on the table. Now, we've already talked about the state of Avowed and how that is not a good game, how that is actually an incomplete experience, and how everybody coping wherever you want to go about how, oh well, actually it's actually not trying to be Skyrim. It doesn't need those Skyrim-esque features. They're not Skyrim-esque features, they're RPG features. Skyrim was a really good RPG. That's why people liked it. They didn't like it because it had unique features that couldn't be found elsewhere. They liked it because it had those features and it did them well. Regardless, let's continue. According to Bloomberg, development on Avowed began in 2018, before Obsidian was acquired by Microsoft. We previously heard that Avowed was at one point supposed to be Obsidian's Skyrim, but this is the first we've heard of a co-op multiplayer angle on the RPG, which Bloomberg compared to Destiny. Right. So, the idea that it was supposed to be Obsidian's Skyrim, it's likely referring to scale and expansiveness, and they kind of sold it as such. As this is our flagship expensive sandbox RPG game, and what we got was trash. And the defense of, well, we weren't trying to make it into Skyrim actually, but you were, because of course you were, because if you had made it into Skyrim you would have been successful forever. Hell, Bethesda is still coasting off of that success. Regardless, let's continue. That seems to have been cut by the time of Avowed's summer 2020 cinematic teaser, but development was still a quagmire. At the start of 2021, Avowed's leadership team was replaced with Pillars of Eternity and Outer Worlds veteran Patel taking over as director. Now, I never played Outer Worlds. I've only ever heard people say that it was disappointing, which, I guess fits with Avowed. Under Patel's leadership, Avowed was further rescoped to its final open zone design instead of a single seamless open world. Even with Avowed's reboot in 2021, the game still struggled with having to sustain a full team's production duties without having outlined its new direction in a full pre-production period. Process Patel likened to building the tracks while the train was moving forward. Right. So, even after all of that, Avowed released to critical praise and initial sales figures Obsidian is reportedly satisfied with. Good for them, I say. I think that Avowed is a better game than something like Veilguard, even though Veilguard did better. That we can attribute Veilguard doing better to the fact that it had Dragon Age to build off of, and it had, frankly, a colossal amount of advertising, with books, with podcasts, with celebrities talking about it. Veilguard was always going to do better. Regardless, Veilguard is a worse game than Avowed from what I've seen. I still think Avowed is an incomplete game, though. Let's continue. I'm struck by how many parallels there are between Avowed and Redfall, which similarly came from a beloved single-player studio and started a troubled development prior to its company's acquisition by Microsoft. In Bloomberg's Redfall postmortem, Arcane Austin employees alleged that they hoped Microsoft would step in to cancel or reboot Redfall's development. That never happened, and in Obsidian's case with Avowed, the intervention came from the studio's internal leadership. And of course, they wanted the Microsoft to step in and cancel Redfall. It was a terrible fucking game. Everybody knows that it was terrible. Nobody likes Redfall. We all wish it hadn't been made, and we're all just stuck here staring at it in disappointment. Obsidian was in a better position to make a tough call like that, though. Arcane Austin seems to have bet the farm on Redfall with nothing else in active development, and Microsoft treating the similarly venerable Lion branch as a separate concern. Obsidian, meanwhile, has become a uniquely prolific multi-project studio, which also has Pentiment, Grounded, and The Outer Worlds 2 cooking at the same time. That's going to be a grand total of 4 releases in 5 years by the end of 2025. Practically unheard of in today's environment of ballooning development times that lessen the need for Avowed to make it to market come hell or high water and be a smash hit for the studio to survive. Obsidian could afford to reassess and reboot the project, an example of the studio's ambitious 100-year plan in action. I don't know what this means, but I assume it means that they want the studio to live for 100 years. And that's a very good idea, honestly. I think that making a studio that can survive a couple of rougher landings is good. It means that something like Avowed doesn't need to sell 10 million copies to be profitable. It's like I said, if the budget of Avowed was 80 million, which, it seems to be the number that is getting thrown around, it's a very reasonable budget. It means that the game just needs to do moderately well, and that will be a smashing success. And I think that that's what more studios need to do for video games. They need to, ease up on the budget. That being said, that doesn't mean that the quality needs to go down. I do think that Avowed looks not great, even when compared to games from 2012. And it's not amazing. That being said, Avowed is... sorry, got a little bit of gastric reflux there. Avowed is a game. Not amazing, not terrible. I think it's terrible because I have high standards for my RPGs, especially if I'm going to be paying a premium for it. But apparently, it's okay. People are okay with it. The fans of Avowed say, well, it's okay, right? It's not terrible. It's not like kicking my dog. And that's okay. I've personally been overjoyed with the result as a longtime RPG fan. Avowed is a game with great combat and genuinely meaningful reactivity to player choice that also nails Pills of Eternity vibe. Another victory Bloomberg attributes to Patel's leadership of the project, which saw a recommitment to Pillars lore and prior stories. Well, I've already stated what I had to state regarding Avowed gameplay and reactivity. Everything seems to point to there being no reactivity. Everything seems to point to the combat being mediocre. Everything I've seen of the combat would make me, kind of not pay $70 for it. Everything I've seen of reactivity makes me think that, well, if you like this, you're probably not an RPG fan. Because you lack the context of it. Skyrim had reactivity, and it was more of a sandbox. But the reactivity of Skyrim, while not being its greatest selling point, was there. And definitely more meaningful than anything I've seen out of Avowed. That being said, I'm glad people are happy with the game. I'm never going to pay for it. I'm going to continue shitting on it, but I'm happy you're happy. And I hope it's profitable, because I don't want this studio to go down. I think BioWare deserves to go down because of what they did to Dragon Age. But that being said, I keep saying that. That being said, I like Obsidian. I like New Vegas. I like the vibe that they put into their games. I hope they have success. And I hope to see you guys next time. All right? Like, subscribe. See you guys next time. Cheers.